Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, welcome. I sometimes feel like an adolescent boy when that hey there starts. I recorded it a couple times and I just couldn't get it right, so I decided to let it go. How the heck are y'all doing? It's towards the end of August by the time you'll be hearing this. How's your summer going? I was supposed to record with an author today. I think it's just not meant to be. We had some problems with the platform. We've had problems with scheduling. I'm just wondering if it's not meant to be, and I'm going to be okay with that. I am going to try and record without notes today. Feels like it's a risky thing. I do think COVID has just changed my brain and my thinking, and to the best of my knowledge, I have not gotten COVID, but my cognitive functions are just not as sharp as they used to be, and I don't think it's something that I'm having a decline. I just think that the ongoing stress is hard. Is anybody else out there with me? A couple of things I want to talk to you about today are the ways that we deal with fear and challenges and the excitement, the trepidation, moving between feeling empowered, feeling frightened. How do we navigate that? So these are kayak stories and talking about learning to roll. I'm not there yet, but I'm halfway. I'm almost halfway. And I think if I have time and I remember, I want to talk a little bit about where Maisie is at with her buttons if you have any interest in it. It's interesting. In the summer on Saturdays, we have skills practice and we meet as a group and practice skills. And as some of you know, if you've been following me on social media at Unapologetically Sensitive on Instagram and TikTok, Pat is amazing and he's been working with me and I trust him and I feel very safe with him. I had skills practice one day. The first thing I've been working on is when you sit in your kayak, in order to do a roll, you want to learn how to tip your kayak. Let's see, it's 90 degrees. So your kayak is basically going up and down and your back is resting on the water. And you want to be able to do a static float there. I'm using a paddle float on my paddle right now. Some people that are really skilled can do this just using their hands, using an oar to kind of scull to keep their balance. I'm just not there yet. So it's like an airbag on my paddle that keeps me afloat when I'm basically with my back on the water and my kayak is tipped up and down in the water. And I was talking to actually Erica, who was a guest on the podcast, who took the online HSP course. She asked me, is it dysregulating for me when that happens? And the first couple times I did it, it was actually really kind of exciting and empowering because I do have those fears of what if my head goes under the water? What if I can't get enough air? What if I breathe? What if I swallow water? What if air goes up my nose? What if I panic? And some of the people that are commenting on the videos that I'm posting on social media, other people rolling or the work that I'm doing, I think a lot of people have these same fears. I do water fitness 2 times a week, and I was in the pool yesterday and I was doing an exercise and I swallowed a mouthful of water. And well, I don't like to drink pool water. Like, it was okay. And I think that when there are activities or sports that we like to do, we just know that that's part of what comes with it, like getting sand. There's sand all over the place. My son was kind enough to clean my car yesterday. He's here visiting. He said, "Mom, there's so much sand in your car." Between me and the kayak and me taking the dog to the beach, we've got sand in the car and the house. It's just the way that it is. But anyways, Erica had asked how that was for me. Was it dysregulating or scary? And the first time I did it, I was so proud and excited because I have so much fear about falling out of my kayak and drowning, all this catastrophic thinking. And it was exhilarating. And then it's funny that the next week that I had skills practice, I'm like, this is stupid. I don't want to do it. And as you know, I vacillate across the spectrum of this is fun and exciting. I love it. To this is stupid. I don't want to do it anymore. I kind of wish rolling was a one and done thing. There's a part of me that like, once I roll like there, I've done it. I don't have to do it again. But the reality is, if you're going to be in a kayak in the water, you want to have skills and you want to maintain those skills so that you can be safe. So the last couple weeks, we've been working on more and more of these skills, and oftentimes I'm excited. Sometimes I don't want to do it. My body has been very tired because it really is a whole body experience. You use your hip to your water leg, whatever side the kayak is in the water. You actually use the muscles in your hip to pull the boat back up right. And one weekend, Pat wasn't able to make it. And I thought, I don't know that I feel comfortable practicing with other people. Pat will stand in the shallow water so that if I tip over, he can grab me and pull me up. And there was a day when we took the paddle float off and we were going to see if I could use the sweep to get back. And the paddle went straight down to the water. And I flipped over and was able to get my head up to tell him I needed help. What you do is you tap on your kayak. That's how you let people know you need help. But I didn't know that. And I swallowed water and I got some water up my nose. And the truth is, I'm glad that it happened because I survived. And it's like, okay, I was afraid that that would happen. It happened and I was okay. And it's not that Pat did anything wrong. We just didn't know what was going to happen. And I was very dependent on the paddle float. This Saturday that Pat couldn't make it to skills and Brenda, my paddle partner, was out of town, I didn't know how much I'd feel comfortable doing. And there are two other paddlers. So Lori and Jane are very, very skilled paddlers. And I did ask Lori, would you be willing to get out of your boat to hold my boat? And she said, I'll do it for you today, but that's all. And I thought, okay, that's fair enough. One of the things that we did, and I know that this is all visual, I'm describing things that are very visual, but I was in my boat and Jane brought her boat up perpendicular to mine so that the bow of her boat is right where I sit in my cockpit. And I grabbed onto it with my hand and I flipped my boat 180 degrees so that I'm upside down in the water. And then I used the bow of her boat to pull myself back upright. Now, obviously, I didn't start out going 180 degrees. I did 90 degrees, where the same way as if I'm doing the static bracing. And then they asked if I was comfortable to try going all the way under, and I did. And again, it was really empowering to do that. The other thing is that I had a death grip on the paddles. I'm using Greenland paddles for rolling, and they're long and they're narrow. They're different than your typical kind of round Euro blades that you see when people kayak or use paddleboarding. And it was nice that both Lori and Jane noticed that I had this death grip on my paddles. And y'all know I broke my right wrist a little over a year ago, but my left wrist has been really sore. And it's because of this death grip. And through the experience that they had, they suggested me just using my first two fingers, my index finger and my middle finger and my thumb on both hands to hold onto the paddle. I'm still holding pretty tight, but it really made a difference. And it also helped because I really need to be using more of my core and my body to do the rolling. It's not just all the paddle. And when you're learning a lot of new things, it can be hard to remember all of those things. The other thing that was really interesting is early on, you can't learn all of the pieces of rolling. You have to learn one piece at a time. And then when something wouldn't work, I'd want to know what wasn't working so I could fix it. I think this is very relatable as HSPs, that I think we can be very goal-oriented. We can be very single-minded. We want to be able to master what we're doing, and we want to be able to put all the pieces together. And I remember telling Pat at one point that I was struggling because I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong, and I didn't know all of the pieces and how it would come together. But I said, maybe I just need to trust that it will come in time as I learn each of the pieces. I've been watching a lot of videos and there's some great videos on YouTube if you have any interest in this, that it'll show people rolling in a pool and you can see what they're doing underwater, where their hand position is, what their body position is. They make it look really easy. And what was interesting is on some of the skills days, Pat would work with me until I got tired, and then I'd sit out and he'd work with some other people. But I liked getting in the water to watch what he was doing with some of these other people that have more skills than I do. And what I noticed is the same things that I would say, other people were saying. What did I do wrong? What do I need to get it right? How come it was so easy last week and it's not easy this week? This tendency to want to master the skill, to get it right, to understand what we're doing wrong. And the reality is some days are better than other days. Some days you know what you're doing wrong. Sometimes you don't. And it was comforting and reassuring to see this consistency in other paddlers that are also working on their roles. Then Pat has had some extra days where he's asked if I'm free to practice, which I love. Last weekend, I went with him and he had another paddler that was learning some of the things. And so we practiced the two-person assisted rescue. It's neat. Pat filmed this. It's a 4-minute video because it took me forever to flip the other guy's kayak. Then we practiced flipping the kayak. But I sped it up, so it's only about a minute. Again, I posted it on social media, but you can see the other guy falling out of his boat, me grabbing his boat from my kayak, turning it right side up, pulling it over the bow of my boat, then having to flip it over on my boat to get the water out, pulling the boat around, securing it so that the other paddler can get in the boat. This is stuff that we want to learn. We want to learn how to get back in our boats. We want to learn how to help people when they fall out. I don't have enough confidence yet to spot somebody when they're rolling. What they do is, again, when they're upside down, they hit on the side of their boat. They kind of run their hands along the bottom of their boat, and then you bring your bow to it. So if they're running their hands, they can catch the bow of your boat and then flip themselves back up, which is what I had done when I was practicing. It reminds me of when I was a kid playing volleyball. I was not very good at team sports. Nobody picked me. Nobody wanted me on their team. I'd run toward the ball with my hands ready to hit it. And then all of a sudden I'd chicken out and go, like, I got it. No, I don't. And, and so I have this fear of like, I got it, and then not. And the worst thing that happens is the paddler needs to release their spray skirt and do a wet exit. But ideally, somebody would be there and they don't have to get out of their kayak, and you'd be there so that they can grab the bow of your boat and right themselves. But these are all things that we're learning. And the day that I was practicing with Lori and Jane, I was going to practice flipping upside down and seeing if I could use my paddle to pull myself up, not doing a full roll, but a half roll. And I sat in position and I sat and like, I just couldn't do it. And I had to honor that it just felt too scary for me to do that. And then on this day that I went out with Pat and this other paddler to practice the two-person assisted rescue, I'd done wet exits with Pat back in October before I even bought my boat. He had me practice wet exits and then getting back in my kayak. And I remember sitting with my paddles ready to tip over. And then when I get nervous, I laugh. That's my nervous laughter. I just began to laugh because it just feels scary to tip upside down on my boat and then release my spray skirt. I also was able to get a neoprene spray skirt because my nylon one just takes on so much water when you're doing the static bracing on your side. There's water and it comes in your kayak, and then it's a lot harder to get your kayak right when it's filled with some water. So I did get this neoprene spray skirt. And, this is about my body dysmorphia. I measured myself. I measured, ordered the size. The tunnel is the part that goes around your waist. I ordered the tunnel that would fit me, and it's a little too big. But I was so afraid of having it be too small and feeling like a little sausage stuck in my little spray skirt. And they're very, very hard to find right now with the supply chain demands. The fact that I got one is really lucky, and it's good enough for now. And how would I have known? But anyways, getting ready to flip upside down, I just got really nervous. And it's interesting, this guy who was joining us that day is a newer paddler than I am, but he's appeared to be much more courageous than I was. But we ended up exchanging some texts, and it was really nice. I had my phone, so I did a lot of videoing of him when he was practicing, and then he took video of me when I was practicing, because unless somebody's there to take pictures, I just don't get any, and I put my camera away when I practice skills. So this ended up being a beautiful opportunity. And as we were exchanging some texts afterwards, he shared a little bit more that he was a little bit more nervous. And I'm confident that he did that because I talked about how I get scared and how I get nervous, and it's just part of who I am, and I can't change it, and I can't do anything differently. But it's just been an exciting and nervousing experience. Then on Wednesday, I went out with the group out into the ocean, and it was pretty choppy and rough. There was higher winds. The ocean was choppy, but it was nice. I've told you I've had this fear of like, oh, I'm going to fall out and I'm going to drown. And this time I had the thought of, if I fall out, I know how to get back in. I know how, if somebody can grab my kayak, I know how to do a heel hook to get back in. And it just made me feel a little bit more reassured than I have in the past. And then the other thing is that every year these paddlers go to Baja down to Mexico for paddling. And a couple things. I've been telling Brenda for months that I needed to get my passport renewed. We went to Alaska when the boys were, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 years old, and they're 22 now. And my son Daniel needed to renew his passport because he went to Amsterdam this summer. So I assumed that my passport had also expired. Months ago, I went online, I did all the paperwork that I needed to do to renew my passport. I printed out the paperwork. These are things that I just struggle with. Paperwork, filing things, filling out things, sending things in is where my executive dysfunction, I just really struggle. So I printed all the paperwork, set it down somewhere, and then went back to it. This was after the computer hack. I couldn't find the paperwork, and I deleted everything that I downloaded on my computer. I really wiped things clean. And that meant having to go back online and fill out all of this tedious stuff, and I just dragged my feet. And then I came home one day and Steve said that he had pulled out his passport to renew it, and his passport hadn't expired, and it didn't expire for a couple more years. So I go and look at my passport. My passport's not expired. Like, how I could fill out all this paperwork and not see that it hadn't expired. I guess I must have just assumed because Daniel's passport had expired that mine had too, but I think because he was a minor, maybe his expired quicker than mine did. So the point of this is my passport is good to go. Now the group of paddlers is talking about going to Baja, and I talked to Pat about, do you think I'm ready to go? And he asked me some questions, and I think I'm skilled enough. So I get this email. We talk about it after paddling the other day, and I get this email that it's a 12 to 14 day trip, and it's 2 days to get down to Mexico. And then I began to work myself up. I have this, I don't think this is the right word, but it's like I want to say claustrophobic, but it's not claustrophobia. It's this feeling of being stuck like, oh, I'm going to be 2 days down in Mexico. And what if something happens and I need to get home? And I was talking with a friend of mine back in 95, my friend Laura, who's also been on the podcast, was studying abroad in England. And I flew over, my first time being international, I flew over and met her. And for 3 weeks, we traveled around England. A friend of hers, Jed, was here in San Diego. And so Jed had, at that point, it was before they were using the euro when England had its own currency. And so she showed me the currency. She was able to tell me what would happen when I got to the airport, where I'd find the bus that I would take to Bristol, where Laura was staying. Like, I needed all of those things because it was new and I didn't know what to do. And having Jed kind of walk me through it. So I just remembered, like, what do you do about water? I know you can't drink the water in Mexico. And if you're paddling, and how much do you bring? And I just have all these questions. And I don't think that I'm going to process the level of uncertainty that I have with these paddlers. Some people do listen to the podcast. So if you listen, feel free to give me some information if you're going on the trip. But I don't think anybody that's going on the trip listens to the podcast. I don't know. I may be surprised. But what I did say to a couple of people is I have a lot of questions, but I trust that they'll be answered in time. And then the part of me that wants a lot of information knows that there's plenty of time between now and when we go in November, and I will get the information that I need, and that it could be the most exciting, exhilarating trip that I've ever taken. I've never taken a trip to go do something physical. When we went, I think, to Mexico, I went ziplining with the kids. My husband was sick. I'm glad I went. But heights scare me, and it wasn't fun. It is possible that if I went today, it might feel different for me. I talked about this a little bit with Jen, but I was talking with my son, Daniel, about it too, that I don't see myself as being athletic. And I think part of that is that I have this narrative of the fat kid who doesn't want to, nobody wants me on their team. And I ended up picking sports that were more solo, like cycling and swimming and things like that, and kayaking. So in my mind, my body size doesn't fit what an athlete is. But if you look at how much I exercise and how capable I am fit. And my 22-year-old son was down, and I asked if he'd go to water fitness with me. It's all seniors. We got in the pool, and he said, does anybody here work? Because most people are seniors. There are some younger people there. He didn't keep up in the class. I think it was hard, and I don't think he was as motivated as I am to get a good workout in, but he said it was really hard. And driving home, I said, I want you to be impressed with me. I want you to see me as being really fit. He's like, Mom, you're dope. With all the paddling that you do, I'm impressed. My friends are impressed. Why I need my 22-year-old to be proud of me, I can't tell you. Maybe I need some therapy. But again, it's what is keeping me from seeing myself as being really physically fit and competent. And Brenda was gone for a week and I was concerned that I wouldn't go to fitness class because I'm just very wired for connection. And I went, and one day we had an instructor that was new and there was problems with the sound system, and I didn't think we were going to work on the abs, and I want to work on my core work. And I worked really hard because I wanted to get a good workout in and it was important to me. So on this one hand, I have this way of not viewing myself as being athletic. And on the other hand, if you look at what I'm actually doing, I'm working hard because I care. So my question to you is, where does this show up for you? We know with women that men will apply to jobs that they don't have the experience for, and they just say they do. And women tend to, I'm not sure that I have the experience. I don't know if I can do it. What is it about us that we don't trust that we are competent in doing things? And where does this show up for you? Are you not going back to school or not asking for a promotion in your job? Or I don't know if you have kids, are you thinking that you're not a good enough parent because you're reactive, but you're actually showing up and doing a great job? The reason why I do this podcast is to talk to you about, if you look at my life from the outside, it looks like I'm doing all these great things, but I want you to know that I have to rumble with my fear and my anxiety, and it feels boring and I don't want to. And I think that the strength and the courage and the bravery and the confidence comes from showing up even when we don't want to do those things, and we do them anyways, obviously without violating our boundaries. But I think that's really important. And I want to continue to share my journey with you because it's an ongoing process. I wish it was just a one and done. I don't think that that's what my experience is. The other thing that I'm trying to do around the rolling is, a neighbor of ours has a pool and I'd forgotten we had a get together over the holiday weekend. And he said we could use his pool, but it's only 8 feet wide, which is not wide enough. So I'm talking with some of the other paddlers, and I think somebody may have access to a pool so that we can practice some rolling in the pool. And then tomorrow, Brenda's going to bring her Jive, which is a smaller type of kayak. It's used more for rafting and it's more maneuverable. So I think we're going to try and use that to roll tomorrow since it's lighter and smaller than a kayak, but I'll keep you posted. So we're going to segue now to talking about Maisie and her buttons. It's really going well. I probably am a little bit lax on adding buttons. I think there's just been a lot going on. It's amazing to sometimes she's just so chatty. Sometimes I don't understand because she had this long string the other night and I was going to do a video on it, but it was just way too long. She said, "Happy walk outside, all done. Love you later." And I'm not really sure what that was about. Sometimes I just don't understand. But it was really sweet last night. Told her we were going to go for a walk, and she said she wanted to play with the bear. And I told her we'd play with the bear later, and we went for a walk. And then we came home and played with the bear. There are times when she asks a lot to play or to go for a walk, and I have to tell her, play all done, walk all done, play all done. Sometimes she'll go bye, happy. One time she said bye and she walked in the other room. So it is time to add more buttons, but it really is nice having this way of communicating. And it's interesting that she does not use the outside button to say she has to go to the bathroom. And in the middle of the night, she often will get up and she walks back and forth. She doesn't whine. She doesn't bark. She just walks back and forth if she needs to go outside. It makes no sense to me. And when I'm in my office recording or working, I keep her in here with me. And the other day, my son and my husband were out on the front porch and Daniel was washing my car. And I think she just heard them and wanted to be out there with them, but she was whining. She was doing some barking. I was pretty sure she didn't have to go to the bathroom. I don't want her to have buttons in the office because I don't want, while I'm with clients, for her to be pressing buttons. And I just trusted that she wasn't going to go to the bathroom in here. She has not had accidents in the house for months. She was very easily house trained. I just had to trust. And I had a client that was gracious enough who also had, my dog would bark, her dog would bark. I feel like it's so incredibly unprofessional. And she's just going through this stage right now where she's just not being quiet like she was. But my concern is that if I let her out when she starts fussing, that she's going to learn that if she makes noise, I let her out. I had probably 10 minutes between sessions. So when my session was over, I went and took her outside. I think she did have to go to the bathroom and I brought her back in. But, these are just little hiccups that we're working through. But it's been really exciting having the buttons and seeing what she says and what she asks for. I don't know. It's just pretty amazing. So if you're thinking about it, again, I would suggest listening to or getting the book, How Stella Learned to Talk by Christine Hunger. It's just fascinating. Y'all, I think that's all I have. I don't think I have anything else. If you were thinking about taking the online HSP course, I'm trying to think of when this episode is going to come out. I think that today is the last day for early bird registration, and then there's one more week of regular registration, and then registration closes. It's a great way to be with other HSPs to get support. We talk about perfectionism and boundaries and seeing what your strengths are, learning how to communicate vulnerably. It's a very, very safe environment. I feel like I keep saying the same things every week, so I'm trying to say something different. What I've had people say is that they learned a new language, they learned to communicate, they learned that they weren't alone. It was validating to be with other people that experience things that are similar to what they do. It's a lot less money than what it would cost to do therapy with me or with somebody else. I think it breaks down to maybe $60 or $62 a session, which I know money's tight right now. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. But it is a great way for an hour and 20 minutes a week. There are videos that you get to keep with lots of resources. It's just a great way to be in community right now. And I think especially right now, we need all the support we can get. If you're interested, you can go to unapologeticallysensitive.com. You can go to the HSP groups page, and by the time you hear this, registration will be open. I may need to adjust the ending date because if I am going to Baja, then that means that 1 or 2 weeks we'll need to make some adjustments, but we'll be fine. I think that's all I have. I hope you're doing well. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.